Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody's doing good. Looks like we're live in Spaces. Yay. Start listening, accept and speak. Request sent, mic is off. Good evening. He's probably just putting the link in the chat.
What's up, Banana?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good. Just putting this link in the chat.
Yeah. I'm enjoying these green candles.
Yeah, it's nice to get some green candles. We had some good action on UFO today.
Yes. Wow. Up 33%. It's really no wonder as far as it dipped.
Definitely. Everything dipped, right? We were bound for a little bit of bounce back.
Yeah. Well, let's hope this continues. That would be wonderful. Something tells me that the volatility ain't over, though.
Yeah, the volatility is good for us, right? Let's have some up and some down, and you know, I prefer the ups and downs than just us sitting stagnant at low levels, right? Even I kind of prefer the ups and downs over us sitting stagnant at higher levels. The volatility is good for our system. You know, we prefer it to go down and then back up. You know, we don't want to just feel it in the downward direction, but I think we've done enough downwards for a while. It'd be nice to get some upwards as well.
Yeah. Good morning.
And part is, you know, if we go downwards and then we go back upwards, you kind of end up in the same spot, and you're like, wow, look at all these tokens we earn. Look at how much we've bought and burnt in this time period.
Yeah.
UFO's been doing pretty good about just burning dolphin positions daily. So, you know, those dolphin positions start to add up to shark positions.
That's right. That is correct. Yeah. Let's see what kind of positions pTGC is burning. Squid positions, like yesterday, 2. The day before that, 3. And those add up to dolphin positions over time.
Yeah, I've seen pTGC hitting some dolphin position twos on the higher volume days. I think just in the last couple of days, it's slowed down a little bit on chain as it's come to these lower levels. But the volume on chain slowing down is usually a good indicator to it finding a bottom, right?
Yeah.
Usually that means users aren't selling much more. Also means users aren't buying much more. But usually, you can get a nice, healthy, rounded bottom and then start working your way back up when the volume starts to slow down.
We burned 3.7 dolphin positions in pTGC on March 21st, but I think that was assisted by a DAO burn on that date.
We haven't done a DAO burn in a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if that was just on one of the days that there was really, really high volatility on chain.
Okay, then it must have been.
I could be wrong though. I don't know if we've done a buy and burn for a while. Maybe we have. I could be wrong, but
Yeah, let me see what the volume was. Oh yeah, it was 1.6 million. I'm sorry, 1.6 million on UFO volume, 1.3 million in pTGC volume.
Yeah, you know, it could have just been from that volume though. 1.3 isn't bad.
I think so.
Pretty good. So.
Yeah. And then we're burning more positions out of UFO. That's for certain.
Yeah, that's mainly just due to the price is so much cheaper. Since the price is cheaper and volume's pretty similar, it just makes it to where it's burning more tokens.
Yeah. You know what? I think slipped right past us, or slipped past me. No, No, we're still at 11.994% burn for PTDC. We still haven't hit that even or even more than 12%. We're below it just a little bit.
You think it's coming tomorrow?
Well, let's see what our volume is right now. Because our volume right now is, give me a second, let me refresh Secreto Bank. 125,000.
It's still pretty low. Like I said, we're still at kind of the bottom. And that's good if volume slows down near the bottom. That usually means it's coming to its point of, of consolidating, then moving back up. But I was more saying, maybe the market picks up a little bit tomorrow off of this little bit of green day, and we have a decent volume day tomorrow, maybe the next day, but I'm sure the day is coming here pretty soon.
Yeah. Yep. We'll be at that 12%. Hopefully tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then soon after. But didn't we have a conversation that we're already at 12%? There's how did that come about?
I'm sure there's some people that haven't claimed their locking rewards yet. I just think some people don't go in there and claim locking rewards, and when they claim, it would probably bump it over that 12% if they're not locked out 10 years.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I think you're right on that one, Banana. It looks like PTGC is going to take the win over UFO.
Yeah, it seems that way.
It's holding in there, but we're getting there, but it's pretty darn close. It's 0.99.
Yeah. UFO is 7.958. PTDC is 7.994. So, yeah, that wasn't me that made that call. I just pasted it into Grok, and it gave me that answer. I cheated a little bit. Or I just used the tools at my disposal.
Do we got any news, Banana, that we want to go over?
Let's see. I can pull up your account on Twitter. I don't know of any other news that we need to cover.
Yeah, I can't think of anything really news. I heard today Rabby was supposed to take PulseChain off of its like preloaded
there you go.
Networks, which I heard it never got taken down. So that might be a positive thing. Some positive news. I don't know much more than that. I don't even use Rabby myself. So I don't know if you have any information on that.
I did pass around some information on that, but it came from the Most token. I think it came from the Most token Twitter. And so it might not have actually, I found out after the fact, it might not have been the most reliable source, but Crypto Coffee also alluded to the fact that perhaps Rabby is changing their mind on supporting PulseChain or not. But his indicator was that there was no longer a warning or a caution or whatever in the Rabby that they were pulling support. And I haven't seen it. I haven't seen that. I don't know where people were seeing that. All I was seeing was that Rabby was going to start supporting PulseChain
with a bridge.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was something saying coming soon to the PulseChain bridge. And then in the last week, there was something that was saying that it wasn't going to be supported any longer. Maybe our strong PulseChain community with, tweeting towards them and stuff like that made them realize how many people within our ecosystem actually use it.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can just, obviously look at the amount of people that hold PulseChain assets, but I don't know, maybe just Twitter got their attention. They got tagged so many times and
yeah. I always just wanted to know, what was the reason for it? Because we vilify Rabby for pulling their support, but why? Maybe they had a legit reason. Maybe it was temporary. I don't know. But I don't really have a way of asking them. But
yeah.
I like their product, and I like DBank, and I want them to support PulseChain for sure.
Yeah.
We have a lot of users over here.
I like DBank also. I really like using DBank. If we don't have any other news, then maybe we could look at the main account, see if there's any tweets there. We can look at my account, see if there's any tweets there to go over. We can also go to RH, see if he has any tweets in the last 48 hours or something like that, and then move on.
Okay. Give me a second. You got a lot of followers, man. I'm getting jealous over here. You have almost 5,000 followers.
I don't think that's that many, but I appreciate it.
Well, you posted, or somebody, it must have been you. Nice to see both pTGC and UFO up double digits. Some people see an opportunity for the X multiplier at these low levels. The last time Pulse went up 3x, while pTGC and UFO went up 45x. And the widget was showing pTGC is up 11.5% and UFO up 26.78%. Yeah, I like that. And then we got some new charts today that Slade posted. I don't know if you guys, especially on YouTube, you guys can see the new chart that he posted, and he did some really cool insets that show that like magnify. It's like he magnifies a section of the chart. He's got the overall chart from July. It must be July 2024 through to current. And then he magnifies a section from August to November and then from November to February. Did you see that? You must have.
Yeah, I reposted it. I love those charts that he does.
Yes.
You can really see how when the RH tickers do start to gain some momentum, price appreciation, you can see the magnification that pTGC and UFO have. You can also see in this latest one, since there has been a little bit of a consolidation on pTGC and UFO, you do see a little bit more drastic consolidation from pTGC and UFO as well in it. But
yeah,
I do think pTGC and UFO will react the same way it has twice in the past.
Uh-huh.
That's what I think super cool about those magnifications is he's showing the two examples previously from the lows to the highs, how much pTGC outperformed the larger assets on chains due to its systems in the last two runs. So we'll see if we do it for a third time.
Yeah, or like a fourth time, because I see three peaks in here, three mountaintops, if you will, and I can see a fourth one, and it would be wow, impressive.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, 4. Not bad.
So yeah, that's a good tweet. Was there a narrative at the beginning of 100 million pTGC being called a miner? I heard that for the first time today.
I think we've talked about it a few times, like what we would consider, because the token themselves, technically one token can mine more pTGC for you, but we're trying to illustrate it in a little bit of a different way where, looking at that decent chunks And you could then look at your portfolio, like let's say we used $1 million. I forget what the numbers were. It was just an illustration that we're kind of creating for people. But, you could kind of look at your portfolio and be like, oh, I have 50 million PTGC. That's like having 50 miners, right? And then as you DCA in or take advantage of dips or compound yield or whatnot, you can actually see those miners increasing. Just like in any business that you have like a value generating tool or piece of equipment, right? Or even in the crypto world, if you have actual mining rigs, people know that have those mining rigs, the more you have, technically, the more you can generate, as long as it's, profitable. The nice thing about PTGC is really the only reason it would not be technically profitable is if price went down and you spent more on it than what it's worth. But technically, it has no upkeeping fees or maintenance fees, if that makes sense, which I find really cool and unique. To where with a miner, you have electricity costs and I don't know the lifespan of mining rigs, actually. Maybe someone else does, but I'm sure just like a computer, they do have a form of a lifespan. Obviously, I'm sure it's quite long, but there is like a depreciating cost to all pieces of equipment out there, I would assume, just like any tool, car. I would assume mining rigs, like I said, I don't even know that. I find it interesting how, if anyone knows that answer, how long or they normally last, I'd be interested to hear. But the nice thing about PTGC is there's really no depreciation to it. It really kind of just grows and never wears out or anything like that, which makes the product in itself very unique. If you compare it to like real world assets and stuff like that, it's really valuable when you kind of look at stuff like that, because mostly everything in the real world does have a depreciation over time. And by using blockchain and stuff like this, it's just giving fresh new opportunities in this decade or, this lifespan that we're in right now.
Absolutely. I think like the biggest threat to my PTDC bag, I'm just gonna talk about myself here. I'm not gonna talk about anybody else. My biggest threat to my bag is myself. Right? We got to think about it in those terms, because like what you just said, there's no maintenance. It's crypto. It's just ones and zeros. It's digits, and if we just leave it there, it's gonna grow. Your PTDC will literally, your principal amount will grow in proportion of the diminishing supply, as long as you don't interfere with the process. But it's like the biggest threat to PTDC is the holder itself, the person that's holding it. I never really thought about it like that. Some of the most successful people in crypto are those let's put it this way, the most successful wallets are those where the keys were lost. It's true. Good day, Tales Dreams. Haven't seen you in a while.
I was sorry, I was muted. I didn't even realize. What I was saying is, of the right assets, if you lose the keys to good assets, then it becomes a really good wallet.
Yeah. Yeah. But we don't want to lose our keys, of course. That's a bad deal.
Yeah, so on the PTGC thing, like talking about, we can even talk about UFO as, 1 million as a miner too. The cool thing is there's only so many that can exist, right? To where like with other miners, ultimately like they can just keep reproducing and making more and more and more, and you have constant competition for what you're mining, right? Like, do you get what I'm saying? But with PTGC, there's only a certain amount of miners that can exist. So as long as you can get your hands on a fair share of them, you don't have to worry about a constant inflow of new ones being produced that can obviously outperform yours or whatnot, right?
Right.
And then you also have the thing is, today 13 million got burned. So you constantly are actually competing with less and less and less, which makes it to where your share is more and more and more, which is cool as well.
Yeah. All right. This post here was actually posted yesterday. With Pulse at an all-time low, the X multiplier's potential is amplified, simplifying the path to a 100x return if the blockchain and project demonstrate resilience. For example, since August, PTGC has surged 10x against Pulse, while Pulse trades at 12x below its all-time high. If PTGC sustains its momentum and Pulse recovers to its all-time high, a 120x return from current prices could be possible. And then you talk about the power of dollar cost averaging into the sustainable projects like pTGC and UFO. That's 120x, man. That's some serious X's.
Yeah, it is. In an asset that does have sustainability and liquidity to actually back a 100x, I think goes a long way as well, right? Because most projects, even if you do a crazy amount of X's on paper, you could be sitting on millions, right? But a lot of times you'll hear people in a bull run talking about being a crypto millionaire, but really life-changing money isn't life-changing unless you can actually change your life, right? Then it's in a way just monopoly money. It's not real unless there's liquidity to actually back those gains. So that's important to pay attention to, and I do find that very unique about the pTGC and UFO ecosystem, that they do have some of the biggest liquidity on chain, making it to where when we do these X's that we're looking for, there's actually value there to back it, which is important, right? We want assets there to back it, not necessarily just for everyone to tap into, but we use those assets to generate revenue. But it also makes people feel good, right? That the asset that they're in actually has value backing it as well.
Yeah. I hadn't actually realized that Pulse was at an all-time low. I mean, am I wrong on that? Like yesterday or the day before, I think it was at an all-time low.
Well, yeah, you're not wrong. It definitely was one of those days.
Okay. I honestly, since I've been in PulseChain, and I was here since the fork, but I didn't really pay attention to the L1 Pulse. But I was looking at the chart. I think must have been yesterday, and I was like, "What is?" I thought we'd gone lower than this, but no, we haven't. We're actually at the all-time low.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I just put it in 4 zeros and a 3. It was kind of just that chain was towing the line at that point.
Okay. Well, the Grays are performing impressively against PulseChain, nevertheless.
Yeah, I didn't really look at pTGCs that much today, but I was looking at UFOs a little bit earlier today, and against PulseChain, I was noticing that UFO really found a floor and seemed to break like the trend line it was going down on, which I kind of consider a really good sign of a form of reversal around these levels. You could probably pull that up on your screen if you want, Banana. But
yeah, I've got it pulled up.
Yeah, against PulseChain, it was kind of, we were trending down at this pretty steep slope. I'm not someone to sugarcoat it. It was a pretty steep slope against PulseChain. And it looks like we finally have found a form of support and it seems like it's actually moving up a little bit now too.
Mm-hmm.
For now.
Yeah, 4 days of green. 4 days of green, but today there's a little bit of red.
I ain't buying this freaking fake and bake run up right here, bro. I'm just gonna keep DCing. I'm just playing.
No, I'm right there with you, Mando.
Go lower.
Uh-huh.
I was more just pointing out that we've seen, like, obviously against PulseChain, we could go lower, but what we've seen in the last week is both pTGC and UFO have been holding this line against the layer 1.
Mm-hmm.
But going on the topic of DCAing, I'll use PulseChain as an example. I'm going to use simpler numbers because I don't want to do the exact math. But the interesting thing is, like, DCAing is super powerful. Obviously, you know, if someone doesn't have dry powder, it doesn't work. But I won't even utilize, you know, explain how awesome it would be for pTGC and UFO. But just as simply for PulseChain, if you're someone who sacrificed, and let's say you didn't sacrifice that much, let's say $10,000 you got in at the 0.0001 number, and now we're technically at an 80% dip. Well, a lot of people will take 10,000 and gamble it and lose it, or maybe just go spend it on something in the real world that has not a lot of value, or just waste it. You know, who knows? Anything. You maybe gamble it on meme coins and lose it. Not that Pulse is much better at this point, just to be honest, but I believe it is better, is my personal opinion. I'm more just saying the chart doesn't look much better. But taking advantage of a discount like this, let's say you DCA'd in another $10,000. I know a lot of people don't have that, but just for this example, with just going back to your first entry price, you would be up 5x on your Pulse, making it to where if you didn't DCA, you would be at a break-even number. If you did bring in that extra 10K and lost it, so you would have 20K in and you would only have 10K of value. So you would need actually a 2X on top of your actual initial put in to even just break even. But again, if you took that value and put it in at the bottom of a sustainable project, by just going back to your first entry point, you would already be up 5x on that, what you put in at the bottom, which ultimately would equal a 3x for your overall investment.
Before we go any further, we have 77 people in this room right now. And what I'm looking at is we ultimately have 23 likes, 10 retweets. Let's ramp this up. Let's get the community like energized, get going. And ultimately, like, also I want to like relay and like talk about like, look what the SPY is doing right now. Look what Bitcoin's doing like right now. Look what Ethereum is doing right now. And come to your own thoughts, come to your own perspectives of what is actually occurring in this free and open market right now.
Yeah, Coach, to piggyback on that, it's pretty much just shit sentiment on each chain, you know, because I'm skipping on X from community to community to community, and they're saying the same about ETH, they're saying the same on Sonic, they're saying the same on AVAX. It's just the same shit, you know. It's the general market. Obviously, it's the general market, and then we get an atomic bomb on PulseChain because, you know, we're PulseChain, you know. We have to
honestly, but at the same time, it's like at the end of the day, it's like it's not really a atomic bomb. It's bringing community together. It's bringing the conversation back into what needs to happen during these down times. It's like, all right, guys, we need to come together, talk, communicate, and what are we going to do as a community moving forward? X, Y, and Z. And PGC
Well,
is
right,
like
but
ultimately
people's wallets aren't feeling it like that, right? So that's just what.
Well, exactly. But like for me, like what I bring to the table is like I want to bring that positive vibe. Like understand what you're getting yourself into in terms of cryptocurrencies. We can go up a lot of X's, but at the same time realize that we can take those 80% hits. And PTGC has actually done that about, I don't know, 4 times. How many times did Hex do that last bull market? 13 times. So what a concept, guys. This is the world you're in right now. But ultimately, like, just know what the Grays is bringing to the table. If there's a problem, pivot. If there's an opportunity, bring it. Is there revenue always generating on every single second of every single day? Yes. Drop the mic. But actually, hold on. Before I drop the mic, on Thursday, I'm actually going to be traveling to Atlanta, and I'm going to be giving a speech there in front of the Atlanta Blockchain Center that Marlon is the person that runs it. So I was given this opportunity, and then also it's going to be a great networking event there. So I just want to give a shout out that the Grays is always working at all times.
That's awesome, Coach. That's awesome. That should be fun. Marlon's a good guy, man.
I'm going to give Coach the shout out because you're not allowed to give shout outs to yourself, Coach. So shout out to Coach for working.
I'm not trying to give my shout out. I was just trying to give the community what's happening this week.
I'm giving Coach the shout out. Good job, Coach.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it, bro.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds pretty fun. How big is that that convention center or that community where you're going? Do you know any information on it?
Well, like some of the people that I reach out to that actually go to the center is the Project Pi guys. And ultimately what they have told me, like there's upwards between 80 to 150 people that show up, depending on like who's speaking and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But ultimately, it's just going to be another networking, onboarding, talking about cryptocurrencies, talking about PulseChain, talking about pTGC, talking about UFO. And ultimately, I just want everybody to know UFO is actually the top 10 liquidity farm token still in crypto currently right now. I'm just little fun fact that I noticed this morning.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool. I didn't realize we were still holding those numbers since we had a decent retracement here on the chain, while also a retracement with UFO. So I'm glad.
Where you getting that, Coach? Where are those numbers coming from?
I'll DM you and talk to you about it.
Okay. Yeah, on CoinGecko, under yield farms, it looks like we're, I don't know, maybe in the top 25 or something like that, 30. I don't know, something like that. Maybe top 20 something, which is still phenomenal, by the way, for what's going on.
Yeah, we're, to think about, we're built on a blockchain that's completely down from the even launch price. And we're still competing in the top 25 in that category. It kind of makes you realize once things start to turn around on chain, like we can really easily be knocking on the door of probably top 5, 10,
Well, weren't we in like the top like 15 or something? Just
No,
not long ago?
we were in the top 10,
10?
and
Yeah,
out of that top
10.
10, and I think we were in number 7 out of the top 10 when they made that announcement. Yeah.
Yeah, because once it got live on CoinGecko up at the top, we were definitely in the top 10.
Well, you got to think about this: the volume that we're bringing in terms of Pulse, at those tops, we're at least like, I don't know, $30,000 to $40,000 on some days in terms of volume.
Yeah, I'm always interested, Prairie, in like the difference between when we're running X amount of volume at a high of the chain, like when we're all happy and yay, our portfolios are up, and then down here at these ranges where the price of Pulse is murdered, but we have lower volume, but because the price is so much down, like what the difference would be percentage wise. That'd be interesting to know.
You mean the difference in volume, or I thought you were going to
just the difference in like X amount of volume performing up at the top, how much Pulse is coming in versus the price of Pulse and the volume, and then just down lower.
Right, because
I imagine it's just equivalent, right? There's just like a formula.
It sounds like you're trying to figure out or trying to like illustrate how much rewards are coming in when we're at a higher price versus a lower price. Is that where you're going with that?
Well, yes. Yes. It'd just be interesting to see, down here, for example, we're getting X amount of Pulse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then up there, we're getting X amount of Pulse, but then there's some kind of what's the percentage difference between the velocity of the money up here and down there in terms of the percentage of Pulse that's being earned based on some X factor?
Yeah, that's something I'd have to do in, when we're not on a space,
Oh, I know that.
I can give a little bit of insight to it, not like exact numbers or anything, but what I've felt by just watching it. For an entire, I would say, year and a half, we had pretty much never a what would the word be, like an overflow of funds with the DAO. But what we've actually seen, I'd say in the last 3 months, we've been actually keeping a consistent overflow of funds still in the smart contract waiting to come out, which tells me that our machine is actually generating more PLS because of the fact that it's filling up very, very rapidly, which is good. And we've actually been holding that overflow, I would say, for 3 months now, right? Which is awesome. That just means that there's extra capital that's still waiting to come out to be used. Right now, and it seems to be holding a pretty fair line.
Like 4.4 billion, something like that.
Yeah, it's been pretty much in a range. It goes in and out based on the volume happening on chain. Like, for example, a week ago, the PLS was flowing in like really, really fast. So we refilled back up, but then it slows down for a couple days and we kind of dig at it a little bit, but then a flow of volume will come in and it will kind of refill back up, and then we'll kind of eat at it for a couple days. It kind of depends on just the market in general. But It's the DAO's smart contract's been consistently holding like around 4 billion pulse constantly, and it's actually a little bit over that right now. So to answer your question, Mando, even though volume slows down at lower levels, it's usually slowing down due to pulse becoming less in value, due to the fact that we're mechanically increasing our volume based on the dollar value of our liquidity pools. And when pulse comes down, that devalues our liquidity pools because it's actually bringing the value lower and lower and lower, which makes it so arbitrage bots actually need to move less money, which means we generate less value at lower levels. But if you don't look at it in the form of dollar value, if you look at it in the form of pulse, PLS, because if you think about it, a PLS is still a PLS. You can look at the PLS's value at the value it is today, or you could actually value something at what you believe it should be valued at, right? If you don't plan on actually selling it into fiat right now. So you could technically look at the 10 billion pulse that we kind of have right now. I think it's actually getting close to 15 billion if you add the smart contract and the management wallet up. But if you consider that SAC rate, well, that's $1.5 million. Because the pulse is still the pulse. If you take away the dollar value from it, it's still one pulse, right? We love to associate dollar values to it because we can associate dollar values to pretty much every single form of currency in the world. You can relate that to even objects within the world. You can relate that to every single token. That's why volume is calculated within dollar values, because it's a similarity between every asset, and you need similarities to compare one asset to another across every blockchain. So it's an easy way to compare the value moving from A to B, because you can't really compare it in Pulse because not every asset is Pulse, but every asset is exchangeable technically for a dollar value. But if you look at everything connected as Pulse, we're actually generating Pulse at highest levels we've ever generated in the existence of pTGC.
Yeah, and that's
in
why there's
Pulse
an overfill. That's why there's an overfill. Yeah.
Yeah, in PLS, right? It not exactly in dollar form, because PLS is at lower levels, but it's actually filling up decently well. And then obviously when Pulse goes back up, if a portion or not all of those PLSs were used, well, you technically accumulated them at the lower price levels if you care about the price, and then they move up in price, right? You were able to generate them low and then ride them up high, but it's still one pulse, right? And that's what I think is a very important metric to pay attention to, because dollar values will always kind of move up and down, bear market, bull market, but we're bringing in so many pulse right now. Like, to anyone who hasn't been here for a long time, I recall conversations back in the day with Coach and Mando, like working on getting one of our main LPs, our PLS LP, to having 5 billion pulse in it. And these were at higher pulse levels, so it was a little bit more difficult to get there. But having 5 million pulse in that LP backing pTGC is, this system's been really built grassroots. It's been built from literally nothing to where it is today. And that was one of the, the milestones we set for ourselves. And it's kind of crazy to think about that just currently right now, our DAO in the smart contract has nearly 5 billion pulse. In the management wallet, I think it's close to 8 billion pulse. It's very interesting, right? That we have pretty much triple one of our milestones sitting there ready to go.
Yeah, the system's just like getting bigger and stronger. Even when you come down, the numbers for everything they're more bulbous. They're bigger. You know, there's more things that are burned. There's more pulse that's coming in. There's more just sitting there in the DAO. Like you've never had the DAO sitting on almost 15 billion pulse just chilling there. You know, that's nice. I like the LP
I like
ads,
that.
down here. I like the LP ads because you know, if you just go back to, you know, where Pulse was, not even the all-time high, those LPs just become super valuable just from just 3 or 4x.
Like think about that, like the Pulse X LP that we just had. Wasn't it like 50K?
Yeah, it was just over 50K. It was awesome.
Yeah. Like think about that. And about, I don't know, with Pulse X going up, I don't know, 3x, 4x, 5x, that liquidity actually builds up, I don't know, 500K to possibly $1 million, depending on
Yeah, I
how
mean, just a
GC
10x
does.
is a half $1 million of liquidity.
What a concept, guys.
Yeah.
What a concept, guys. What a concept.
Freaking beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's nice to buy $500,000, $1 million worth of LP for 50 G's. You know, 100 G's.
100%, man.
We've witnessed it. We've witnessed it go up. Like don't get you guys have seen how thick the liquidity gets, how quick it gets down.
Yeah. Yep. We saw it on the last run up.
Yeah, that kind of just goes back to the same thing we were just talking about. Like if you stop paying attention to the price for just a few moments and just look at the quantity of tokens that, you know, a $50,000 LP ad is adding into an LP at this level. I think it was over $1 billion PLSX or something like that.
It's 1.1 billion.
Yeah. At all-time highs, you know, that turns out to be a decent chunk of LP ads. And taking advantage of LP ads is really nice at the bottom because when the assets that you're connected to start going up, you get the X multiplier from those assets. And the more assets that you have that run up, technically, is giving more backing value to your asset. So even if a couple users sell into it or whatnot, well, you have tons of value there to back a few users selling into it. Obviously, what we've seen in the past is the opposite. We actually see users buying in. But the nice thing is if we load up LPs here at the bottom, when everything starts moving, well, we don't maybe need to focus so much on LP ads. Maybe we rotate a little bit more to buy-in burns, etc. I think anything is in the cards, but there is pros of being down at these levels, and it's nice to be in a system where it is generating revenue all the time, to where we actually are able to take advantage of possible life-changing discounts on the blockchain and the blockchain's connected assets.
You know, it's crazy. If you pull a fib level from where Pulse started and then just pull it all the way down, it's like textbook just hit fib, go down. You know, in terms of just like what you would expect in just a perfectly just orchestrated drawdown. It's just to me, it just looks like the chain's just going perfectly down at just this very slowish rate to a certain destination.
Mm-hmm.
What a concept, guys. What a concept.
If anyone who's listening wants to come up and add to the conversation, feel free to come up. this space is held for all of you guys to ask questions, add to the conversation. If there's anything within pTGC and UFO that you want to go over or talk about, feel free to just come up and ask. Kundog, I see you got your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Zane. Just want to add a fun fact, I reckon a very bullish fact. Just playing around with the charts here as well from when we spoke last time. So pTGC on the last run, just in terms of X's, ended up doing a 74X, and basically that was when, so that sort of started in August last year, and that's where pTGC or where PulseChain was at its lows. Now we're sitting at PulseChain at all-time lows again. And I know we were speaking before about the all-time lows being Mando around that, 4 zeros and a 3, but actually we're 50% lower on PulseChain lows than we were at when we were at the lows in around August last year. So if you think about the X multiplier, I mean, I don't know if it's just me or I'm getting really excited in the fact that, we are a very nice and healthy leverage on the ecosystem with that X multiplier. And we're currently sitting at a 50% discount from the all-time lows from August last year on PulseChain.
Yeah, man.
And I think our ecosystem, this ecosystem, is stronger than ever. So if we did a 74X from August last year up on that last big run up, then, we're sitting in a very healthy position to, increase our net worth on the next run up or into the future. So I'm just, and it's speculation as well, of course, but I mean, if that doesn't get you excited, I don't know what does.
Well, yeah, it just seems like that it front runs the run of Pulse. Like right now, from that wick down against Pulse, pTGC is back up against Pulse 20, almost like 22%, right? And Pulse is going up, right? So you can just see it right there on the chart when you invert it and look at it right now in the last 3 days or 4 days. Is that you see what happened with the ecosystem, you see what happened with Pulse, the cores. Look on the correlation between the front running of the ratio flipping back out of the 8s, and now it's over the 10s, and then boom, the chain goes back up.
Yeah, exactly, Mando. So yeah, yeah, like Coach said, what a concept and how exciting these times are. If you can just see through all the current uncertainty in the wider crypto market and then on PulseChain, really you just sort of just need to sit in your hands on this one. I mean, like Banana said, we are our worst enemy. Really, it's just the fact that you could fumble it, nobody else, just yourself. So yeah, that's all.
I agree. I agree with you 1,000%. I can tell like what you mean, just spiritually, even like I can tell that you can see it. And I agree. If PulseChain is successful, pTGC is going to become a freaking monster.
Yeah, it's going to be so strong.
It's going to blow people's minds, dude.
Yeah, totally. So if you really feel down in these, then you really need to just take that step back and really think about what you're actually in, and you need to give yourself somehow a longer time frame. I mean, I struggle with it as well. I'm sure everyone does, and everyone's got responsibilities in the real world and everything else, and I feel like people who get into crypto as long as I have and longer, they like to invest a little bit more than just what you can afford to lose. Let's be honest. So, especially when you find an asset like this. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Well, and you know what another thing too is that it's not always like what you can afford to lose, because sometimes like you put in what you are willing to lose, and then that goes way up, right?
Right.
And then you never re-ask yourself the question, am I willing to lose what I just gained?
Absolutely.
And so you just sit there with all the, but if you ask yourself the question, would I put this much in this right now, like out of my bank account? If the answer is hell no, then you should probably take some profits. You know, because you'll probably cop a dip at some point and be able to get more coins, or you know, not be so pissed when the price goes back down.
Yeah, so I urge anyone else, if you've got anything you want to mention or just bring attention to this whole group, just like Zen said, come up and throw the comment out.
Yeah, Doug, real quick on the fact that we are like an additional 50% lower than the last time low. It's important to bring up, right? Because that's an additional 2x to wherever we go, technically, if you take advantage of the lows of the lows.
Yeah,
and a double it's a lot, right? But you can,
it's a lot.
If you consider, like you were saying, the 75x or whatever, but let's just use 50x because it's easy. Well, that's the difference between a 50x and a 100x. That's a lot of x's.
Yeah, Zen, people forget it's actually multiplication, you know?
Yep. Totally. And then also on the other end of it, you know, the DAO and the mechanisms behind pTGC and UFO, if we're taking advantage of this, like you mentioned before, with the liquidity pools and everything else, and purchasing Pulse at these lows, 50% lower than its all-time low back August last year, then yeah, like, wow.
Well, one of the big ones that I know wasn't around was last time PulseChain was at the lows, we did not have a DAO sitting on 15 billion Pulse. I don't know what it was, right? But I know it was nowhere near 15 billion Pulse.
No way.
Yeah.
No way, man.
So you can actually see the machine just becoming stronger and stronger by looking at like the amount of revenue that's kind of even just sitting on the sidelines waiting. And that's not even considering some of the more basic stuff, right? Like more redistributed supply to stronger hands. The fact of maybe some users getting some profits out of the system to where they don't feel too pressured to take as much on the next go, or maybe they do, I don't know. But the fact that in the last 6 months, if that's 6 months from August to now, it's actually more than 6 months, the amount of tokens that have been bought and burnt, which is an investor that's bought in and pretty much sent his tokens to the debt address. The investor is obviously the smart contract, but you get what I'm saying. It's a benevolent figure within the system, just code, acting in the best interest of the community. These are a lot of very important metrics that are adding up, right? And it's putting pressure behind this machine and the price, and you can kind of feel the pressure building up a little bit. And I also feel there's a little bit of pressure behind PulseChain as well. And I don't think that pressure is hitting right now. Obviously, we're hitting all-time lows, but there is something building up. Like, I personally can feel it. I don't know what it is, right? But it seems like something is coming to get us moving in the right direction again. Especially if you think about it, we haven't even been, like the last time PulseChain moved up, we didn't even come close to SAC rate.
Zen, no, I might actually know one answer or one of multiple answers to that question or to that comment you just mentioned. I mean, we all know what's happened over the last month or 2 months and what RH has done to his whole ecosystem. And that's thin the liquidity on his, you know, incentive tokens and also his core tokens as well. So if the liquidity is thinned, then this is probably why we're seeing a nice sharp shoot down past all-time lows from previous. But then obviously everyone thinks about Hart's law to the upside there. They forget about it to the downside. This is the result of that. But then once we find a bottom on Pulse, the liquidities at the lower levels have been set, then the rocket for PulseChain to start moving upwards when that happens is going to be, it's really going to be powerful. And then you think about the leverage that this ecosystem has on the core tokens, not just Pulse, but PulseX, Hex, and everything else. That's just, a recipe for... I haven't experienced anything like that, I don't think, and I don't think anyone has here yet either. I think the best is to come.
And Kuhn, what I really like to talk about when people are calling me or asking me questions to kind of do a walkthrough right now is the fact that the liquidity on PulseX is thinned out, but this ecosystem's liquidity, it really is a solid rock. The LPs keep building on pTGC. It's burned. There is no liquidity getting pulled from pTGC, right? It's just constantly just being added to. So there's we have more of a percentage as time goes on when you have thinned out liquidity of the PulseX DEX than anybody else. So when it starts to go back up, that liquidity isn't necessarily being added to. It could be added to, but ours is getting thicker, right? So you have a real path to value on a chain where the base LP provisioning is actually thinned out, but the liquidity web of pTGC and UFO are not being thinned out in that sense. You're not getting that pulling going on. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. Understand. Yeah, you're right. Didn't think of it that way.
Yeah, so it's a massive undergirding.
That is really important, Mando, to kind of zoom out and think about, because every liquidity in every system is ultimately a group of holders sharing that liquidity in a way, right? Like, not everyone's taking it all the time, but your portion of that is based on your share of the token and how much liquidity is backing it. And that is a fear when liquidity does get pulled from a chain. It does make it easier for price appreciation, but you can't lie to yourself and say, well, there isn't less value backing these assets now, because there 100% is less value backing the assets. The exchange is the easier pump. But the nice thing about being within pTGC and UFO is we are actually not taking any liquidity away from our assets. We actually more recently added 50K of PulseX, and we're actually bolstering our liquidity up. It's lower right now due to our connected assets being lower, but as far as PLP tokens, it's constantly increasing. The PLP tokens are constantly increasing, which makes a quantity of liquidity that we have is very large in comparison of the amount of holders and people we have to share it with. So we get the ability of doing a bunch of X's due to the things we're connected with and those getting their liquidity pooled, but we don't have to compromise our liquidity to still get the X's. We also get the X's plus the liquidity as well, which is important.
Yeah, very good points. Very strong points, actually. It's like you said a while back. It just really provides an even more robust foundation for this ecosystem to just be a long-term investment and asset that you want to stay in, and it's not wealth extracting; it's more wealth generating than anything else.
Yeah, I could speak for myself, right? Like, for me to store value in a place, I don't want something that's constantly changing. And I don't want something that is constantly moving large lump sums of the value backing that asset either, right? Because that value backing the asset is a form of security to me for long-term plays. I want something with definites, right? And this is things without definites with moving parts are really cool for maybe quicker plays or smaller plays or quick gains. But if you are going to store a lump sum of value in something, you don't want it to be constantly changing around you, because you might not like how it gets changed. And then you're kind of stuck within it with a large lump sum of your family or your value, right? So I do think it's a very important thing for good, like, stores of value or assets to not have a bunch of manipulatable features within them to change how the game is played, right? Like, a lot of people with large lump sums, they want to know the rules and what game they're playing when they enter in. They don't want to go in with everything they own blind and then have the game constantly changing on them to where they can't make educated decisions for themselves.
So it's basically the fact that you have the ability to look at set parameters, and if you're paying attention to those parameters and how they correlate to the underlying blockchain and ecosystem that it's sitting on top of and connected to, you just have to watch those certain parameters to see performance. You can see overperformance, you can see underperformance, but you know that the 5% fee on transactions never changing. You know that, you can always see how much LP is available to be purchased on the float because you're monitoring that. That's a parameter, right? All these different things. And because they can't be altered or changed, the thing I like about that is that you become one with it. You get to know it, almost like it's your wife. not that your wife doesn't change, but you become very familiar with it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I like the parameters because when you're playing with a lot of money, you want to be able to read your investment in a way that allows you to look at key performance indicators over periods of time and make legitimate decisions with it. We can't know when PulseChain's going to keep going down like it just did. We couldn't have known that. But what we can look at now is, okay, it just hit a new low, but look at where it landed now. Look at the LP. Look at how much is coming in. Look at how much PulseChain. How much does it take to pump up X amount based on if this much is injected into Pulse? What's the X multiplier? And you can keep running the math no matter where the system is, and that's what I like. You can't run math if your parameters are always changing in that same sense.
Mando, a couple of weeks back, you had an awesome analogy with the whole, wanting to make sure you're sitting in a long-term investment that's sound, that isn't like a one-night stand, and it's more like, it's more like your wife or your lover and this and that, and it's just forever. I can't remember what it was, but it was a fantastic analogy. I'll have to clip it back up and maybe.
Well, what I can tell you what I said in a nutshell. Basically, what I said, I asked the question, when it comes to crypto, what are we looking for, right? And so there's things that we're looking for. I feel like pTGC has all of the things that crypto people look for in a real investment, in a real financial product. So the question is, in crypto, we get very greedy. It's all about greed. You could be on 50x and not even take profits because you think it's just going to double again. It's just. So the question for me that I brought up was, at what point is she sexy enough, right, to where you don't have to go cheat on her? At what point do you just not cheat on the thing that's treating you the best to go run over here and cheat on your wife with the next little sexy carrot that just walks up and you have no clue what that is? It just says, right? And so that's the equivalent of pTGC in a way. Like you don't treat pTGC with disrespect, in my opinion. She is like having a beautiful wife in crypto because she's open, she's transparent, she's there. You know her, you know what she looks like, you know what she acts like. You know, she's never cheated on you. She's never, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly it, man. That's the feeling people need to start having about this ecosystem.
Yeah, I think that they will. Right. It just takes time for people to realize where the value is in things.
Actually, this is a good segue. I wasn't going to mention this time round, but I picked up a few points of other discussions I've had over the last week with people, and what makes a really good asset, and then what makes a really good investor is understanding their asset they're in, understanding the potential for upside. And then also understanding what vision is out there with that particular asset or company that they're backing, and understanding how that company is going to be able to, take those risks in the future or competition risks and turn them into strengths. And I'm not going to name names on any other cryptos, and I know that there's some other ecosystems within PulseChain that are trying to rival this one. And I do see them, running up their prices and doing huge X's and everything else. But there is something that we have here that they definitely do not have. And that comes back to Zen and Mando and what you're saying about our liquidity pools, the strength and the foundation of the ecosystem, the fact that we actually back our price with strength and with a thickness of those liquidities where the ins and the outs, the buys and the sells, the bids and the offers can happen without affecting the price chart too much or, slipping it up or down too much for one individual. So, yeah, there are other cryptos or other ecosystems that might show an awesome chart and might rival this one, but they're missing a key element, and that is the strength in the backing of liquidity.
Yeah, the liquidity is phenomenal. I really like the unchanging parameter part of it. I like that everything is renounced. It's a finished product. We all know what it is. We all know how it works. Nobody can manipulate it. Nobody can benefit more than anybody else based on how you use the code. It's benevolently launched, and everything goes back to the token holders. You can see what it is. You can see what it's going to do in the future based on running math on how well PulseChain does. You can connect it to other things that literally instantly start generating more revenue. One of the damnedest things so far is that you just can't trust much shit right now. There's not a lot of things on Pulse that you want to connect with and burn LP with, because you just never know. Just like, for example, the whole PDI thing, you just never know, right? So, but the system has the ability to forever create new revenue generating, basically little franchises, and generate more revenue because of the way that it's set up, right? Envision, like, in the future, when the system, we've talked about it before, running numbers, the system's generating millions and millions, not 50,000 a day, $1 million a day, right? Well, that money's got to go somewhere.
Absolutely.
It's going to go into LPs. It's going to go into buy and burns. And that's the ultimate thing, is that the system, like, we've seen little spurts of it, but my goodness, imagine the system on PulseChain that's just humming.
Yeah, and all of that just becomes pressure for price appreciation to the upside. Absolutely. I'm just playing around with the chart again as well on pTGC, and I didn't realize this. I've just picked it up while we've been talking. I don't know if anyone's really into Elliott wave theories, but if on the PTGC chart, and I'll have a look on the UFO chart as well to see what it's like. But it looks like we've actually performed a perfect 5-wave Elliott wave count from the August start point on the last run up, and then it looks like we're coming into the three-wave corrective, and it looks to be bottoming. Well, from what my analysis is at the moment, I might actually do a little post on this. I'll take a snapshot and throw it on X. It looks like it's coming into the finishing of the 3-wave corrective to start on a next Elliott wave count to the upside. So that's exciting.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. I'm not too much of like a charter, but what I do pay attention to is when PTGC and UFO become oversold and our connected assets start to be oversold, it really creates great opportunity within this ecosystem. And it's pretty easy to look at, right? You could look at RSIs, you could look at MACDs, and just see when you start going into those oversold areas. And then you also look at your connected assets, since everything's funded, and see where those are also at in that environment. And if they're both falling in those oversold areas, it usually, like I said, I don't like charting that much because of, everything is uncertain. But usually what that's shown is literally the best opportunities to get into PTGC and UFO.
Yeah, great. And it looks like that oversold point from what I'm looking at now is we're right in that zone now, if not shot a little bit past and pop back in it.
Yeah. Peanut and Fred, did you have anything you wanted to add or a question?
Yeah, I did. Thanks for having me, guys. I had a quick question. And again, thanks for holding these spaces. It's I learned tons here. That pTGC really outperformed, PLS and PLSX, obviously. And correct me if I'm wrong, that PDI run-up had, a large part in that. Is there, have you done the math, or anybody looked at it and say, hey, if PDI were never around, we would have done this much over PLS? Does that make sense? I'm just wondering, I'm just trying to figure how much of the PTGC growth was due to just PDI.
Yeah, so one thing to pay attention to of how these liquidity bondings work is the PDI bond is just one portion of your the best word is index, right? And it kind of works very similar to any portfolio index, right? Pretend your own portfolio was you. PTGC is like its own portfolio. It's connected with PulseChain. It's connected with PulseX. It's connected with Hex. It's connected with PDI, right? It's connected with Inc. And you can actually look at the sizes of its liquidity and say, oh, that's actually the portion of PTGC's portfolio. So the good example now right? So PDI went up. Yeah, PDI went up, and really the RH tickers didn't do much, right? So PDI was actually not that big of LP pool, but due to it doing a decent amount of X's, it actually became our biggest LP pool at one time because it was going up and up and up. But you have to kind of realize that's only one portion of the portfolio. It still has to pull up the other, as of right now, PDI only makes up, I think, 3% of the entire liquidity web. But at one time, it was around probably 20% or something like that at its more largest times. So we wouldn't have gotten as many X's, especially in the earlier days. After the first run and then recycle consolidation, the more recent run of PTGC and UFO, what I noticed is that came more naturally from PTGC and UFO to where the first cycle push actually came very, very strongly due to the connectiveness with PDI, to where the last time PDI didn't do as much, and pTGC and UFO really took, like, it became the monster it is. You know what I mean? It really did a lot of that pushing on its own. But that's not to say PDI didn't do a lot for our ecosystem for the time being, right? For that year and a half. The thing that it really did for the ecosystem that a lot of people don't realize is our system generated revenue off of that LP pair for a year and a half every single day, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that slowly starts to add up over time, because that's buy and burns. That's APY to holders. That's, LP ad automatically. That's DAO funds to go do more LP ads. So that's where it's maybe not necessarily like X's, like right off the bat, but I think we actually generated a lot of value from that pair. And again, we have de-risked from that, but we went and took in the value that we've had there, and we actually redistributed that to a couple new assets that I believe will do very, very well in our index. Time will tell, but I think they're promising meme coins on this chain. They're pumping most, like, kind of official RH meme coins, if you want to call it that. Not like written in stone, but he's tweeted about them and stuff like that. So I think those new additions to our ecosystem will now be fresh new legs of value generation. Plus, if those go on a nice run, they have very little liquidity. So those could run really hard. I think at one point today I saw pump was up 40%. So those moves a year ago is what we were generating a lot of value off of PDI. So what I'm seeing is, we are pivoting constantly to find like the right assets to pair with, to generate revenue off of, to add to our index, if you want to call it that. And we definitely hope they do very well, right? Because if the assets we're connected to do well, we do well. And it like creates an awesome like teamwork scenario where by bonding with these things that you don't actually have to sit there and be like, oh, most is going up, I wish we were going up, right? It actually is, it turned into a scenario of like, awesome, most is pumping right now, they're paying us, we're generating value off of these, and they're dragging our price up, which then any other additional buys that comes to us pushes us up even more. But yeah, to the topic, I think the first run up of pTGC around this time last year, so like our first all-time highs, March 2024, there was like a second wick that came from a big PDI move. And I definitely felt a lot of the growth at that time was coming to our connected assets there. But last year, August to January, I believe that growth came from pTGC and UFO itself within. We did a lot of X's comparatively to PDI in that event. And possibly we were even dragging up PDI instead of them dragging us up in that event. So we were acting as the dog, and they were acting in the tail at that time, because we actually ended up becoming bigger than PDI at that point. And we're, I guess, bigger right now also.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Now you said you guys are always tinkering about, what coins to add and stuff like that. You mentioned pump and most. Are there other ones that you're looking at possibly adding?
I don't have too many on the radar right now, just specifically because RH tickers are so cheap. So we're like, really, what isn't a good buy in LP at this point with RH tickers so low? Most and pump are pretty low too. For me, those ones seemed like, because you want to also, when you connect with it, you also want to do kind of a longevity and sustainability check on it as well, right? Like, even though it might look good today, you kind of also have to ask yourself, like, why would that be around in 6 months? So you can't just be like, throwing it at everything, in my opinion. Like, this is what I think is, because we don't want to be adding LPs and taking LPs and adding LPs and taking LPs constantly as things die around us. It becomes a ton of management work. And the whole idea of the system is by holding one, you hold all. But we don't want to hold all, including garbage going, not doing well. It wants to be by holding one, you hold all being like the blue chip sustainable things on chain, right? So we're kind of always on the lookout for like what things are going to turn into the blue chips of the chain, and also want to just make sure what they do functionality wise do well for our ecosystem. Like, for an example, zero fee on transaction tokens are really good for us to add with, because the threshold for the market makers to market make have to already go over our threshold. So if we pair with something that also has a fee on transaction, it makes the threshold double, which makes it so the market making opportunities are very, very rare. So we don't thrive off of those. Other things that we really look for is they have good volume and volatility, because if an asset has good volume and volatility, that means there's lots of volume and movement flowing through it. And the more money that's flowing through that asset is getting forced through our asset as well, making it so we get to generate revenue off of that, right? So there's like a lot of key things to look at, even more than just like price slowly going up. Like, we want to actually make sure it's got a good line share of the volume on chain as well, and volatility is important. Definitely a lot of things to look at. I'm sure
I'll throw something in there, Zen.
Yeah.
So I like to look at it like this too. Personally, just right now, at all-time lows of Richard Hart's blockchain, like locking in the blockchain value is like chief cornerstone, fundamentally sound, right? Because the DAO, the Grace currency, forever can attach itself to the best narratives, the best assets, the best anything that ever shows up on chain and proves itself moving into the future. Right now, there's just not a lot of that on chain, right? But in the future, there could be a ton of that on chain. But locking the things that are backed by real value, which are Richard's core coins, in at such all-time lows, that fundamental cornerstone, that kind of like financial rock, if PulseChain becomes successful, which I do believe it will, it's going to make this thing a behemoth, right? It'll just make this thing just, if we see it, it's 5, 10, 15, 20x from here on Richard's core coins, and you're loading up down here, and then it just goes, man, this is going to be such a beautiful, sexy, attractive financial product to people. It's going to be a beautiful thing to watch, man. Because that capital is now locked in for the token holders forever, and it's forever working for the token holders.
Amen.
That's why we always talk about the revaluation of the blockchain. Like, it's an undervalued blockchain, right? So if it sees a true revaluation, which we have not seen, which means, PulseChain goes to make new all-time highs and doubles again from there, kind of a thing, this protocol is it's just going to be astronomical, man.
Yeah. Man, good shit, guys. Awesome.
Thanks for coming up, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we've been going an hour and a half now. So, if anyone has any additional conversations or questions, please bring them up now. If, Mando, Coach, Banana, anyone who's up in the speaker board, if you guys want to add anything before it starts slowing down, please feel free to.
Yeah, I'll just cap it with this. I do love the fact that the system is able to pivot to anything that comes online very fast. There's great people within the community that know how to do market analysis on these things and just really, see what's out there, because it's kind of like, what's the fun thing to do on chain for people. But I love the fact that it can pivot and just instantly take a position. That's awesome.
Yeah, the most one is a great example of that, Mando. It came out of nowhere. I think that was quite obvious. And when we saw it come out of nowhere, we watched it for a few days. We watched RH tweet about it. We took in some funds from the DAO, and after we saw he had a specific liking to that specific one, it was a good decision, in my opinion, for us to take action on that pair. And if anyone was there that first week, we actually generated from that one pair all the money we spent on it. So we were 100% reimbursed for the value spent. And now we own that LP pair for the ever of the blockchain to generate revenue off of it forever.
Yeah, it paid for itself in the first 4 or 5 days.
And that's one thing I think that really makes pTGC stand out compared to tons of assets is, in a decentralized way, throughout cryptocurrency, the crypto is constantly changing, constantly evolving. I'm sure anyone within the PulseChain community, if you were asked what the environment of PulseChain was going to look like today, you would never have given this answer, right? That there was going to be a pump.tires narrative where RH was pushing for people to create meme coins. The fact that we're kind of cutting the whole giving the forked tokens value narrative that, in my opinion, was a big part of PulseChain, right? The biggest airdrop, and there's going to be farms giving these things value. I personally think that's possibly coming to an end unless it gets re-brought back in by RH and the devs, but I am under the impression it's kind of getting cut off. So a lot of stuff has changed. A lot of things will always change forever. The nice thing about this protocol is we have a constant flow of funds to evolve with the crypto industry evolving around us, where most protocols are locked into specific functions, which we are locked into a bunch of functions, which makes it a good sustainable asset and a good store of value. But you also want to be able to pivot with the industry evolving around you, because in 4 years, PulseChain will not look like what it looks like today. And you want to be able to adjust with the times. And obviously, I think everyone realizes that pTGC and UFO intentionally have been designed to last as long as PulseChain, where most protocols, that is really not the goal. The goal is just, this will come out and go up. And usually the idea is, I'll take value from people because I got in this earlier, I started this. And they don't care for it to actually last 10, 20, 30 years, literally as long as the blockchain. It takes very specific products to go multiple cycles and be relevant as a blue chip on that chain forever. It does take a lot. You got anything, Banana?
I really don't. It's nice to see the green candles. I think we've all been beat up for, the last few weeks. And hopefully the green candles continue and kind of reinvigorate and re-encourage everyone.
I think it will. I think back to the last consolidation that we had on pTGC when PulseChain went to its all-time lows again for the second time. And very quickly, with volatility, volume, and prices picking up on PulseChain, specifically our community really woke up and felt good. It really turned our machine on. People saw the APY kick in. People saw the buy and burns kick in. People saw the machine really gearing up and revving up high. And it, I think, puts a spark, a smile on all our faces when we see the machine that we have trust in running so well. And I actually see the machine running really well right now, and especially the last week and 2 weeks with the volume on chain and stuff like that. But it feels a lot better, and you can feel it in our community when, even though the machine is running good, it's also alongside green candles, especially multiple green candles in a row. So I'm super excited to find this floor on PulseChain and just keep doing what we're doing.
Yep. Me too. I think we'll be in Valhalla before we know it. We just gotta get through the suck, you know. It's kind of rough right now.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone need to say anything before we go? All right, guys. Yeah, thanks for coming in. Banana, thanks for co-hosting. Coach, thanks for co-hosting. Coondog, Peanut, and Fred, thanks for coming up and just adding to the conversation, bringing the questions. I do appreciate the engagement. It makes the space a lot more enjoyable having the community come up and just hang out with us and conversate. So thank you for coming up. Everyone just listening, thanks for just showing the support, listening, and being here for the community. Let's, keep our heads up and keep pushing. Not every day is going to be an awesome day. There's rough days in life all the time. Let's just keep our head up and know where we're heading. Yeah. We know what machine we have to lean on, and it is nice on hard days having a strong community, strong friends, good family friends, whatever you want to call us, to lean on and trust, and even in a trustless system, be there for each other. And let's find this floor and let's start moving in the right direction again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all appreciate you being here too, Zen.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, see ya.
All right. Thanks. See ya. That's it. That's it for the spaces. How many spaces have we done total? Those here will persevere. Yeah, man. You're welcome, Adi. What's PCE, man? Spell that out for me. PulseChain ecosystem. Yeah, guys. It's a little rough. We just got to go clean the garage, go for a walk. I've been going for walks, man. Out in this hike and trail system, just getting away from it all. And just letting the system do what it's supposed to do. OVN is just here working on the background to stack more alien tech coins, pTGC. There you go, man. We're in a great buy zone, guys. If you can dollar cost average, I'm happy for you, man. That's good stuff. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll have spaces again on Saturday morning. Have a great week, everybody.